Howdy there. I am reading the book Death Comes for the Archbishop. In this video I'll be going over the first two books within the book, so they're not chapters, they're books. So it opens up with our main character by the name of Jean-Marie Latour, or as we will call him, Father Latour. So it opens up with him on his horse in the desert, and he's dying of thirst. And he is praying because he needs to live through it in order to survive the rest of the book, I suppose. So as time goes on, his horse ends up leading him to a source of water, and there's a house nearby. The family eventually takes him in. Now, we find out later that because his point in the book is to make it to Santa Fe, and we find out he actually did in fact make it there, but he was going back to Mexico to get validation to start a missionary work there. But he eventually got lost and almost died in the desert. So he gets taken in by a family, and the father figure asks if he can perform marriages and baptize everybody there because they haven't seen a priest in a while. So he of course does that, and he holds a mass for them the next morning because they haven't seen a priest in quite a while. So after doing that, he moves on, and the book cuts to Christmas time, actually. So it goes forward a little bit, and we find out that his companion, he goes by the name of Joseph Valiant, who is also a priest, so we will call him Father Joseph throughout this book. He actually has come, and so now they're back together. They talk about what they need to do in expanding and getting validation for their church. And eventually they hear some gunshots outside while they're talking about this, but they don't really pay any mind to it, and it never really comes to anything. So that's an important part of the story. So then it moves to book 2. And what happens in book 2 is that, well, not much happens in the first chapter of it. They just continue on. They have very poor mules who are dying, and they eventually trade them for 2 more better mules, and that's basically all that happens in chapter 1. And then in chapter 2, they're making their way through the desert, and they get very tired, and they find a little house where there's one of the white Americans living there with a Mexican woman, and he seems to be very abusive to her, but they don't really pay it much mind. And so when he leaves the room, the wife lets them know that they'll probably die if they stay there because he has killed those who have stayed there before. So they both leave, and he tries to keep them there, but they do end up leaving. And then eventually they make it back to town, and the woman follows them, and so they take her in, and they keep her safe. And then eventually she tells them that the man is her husband, and that he has killed 4 travelers before them and 3 of their children. So that's not good. And then eventually they find him, and they have a short trial, and they kill him. And that's pretty much the end of the second book.